Gray, over to you.
Right, thank you. Will you let me share my screen, Tasia? It looks like you're still
Yeah,
sharing.
let me start.
Right, hopefully the permissions. I just realized we are may not have shared this before, so it might ask me some questions. But it looks like we're good. Perfect. Let's go. All right. So before we're going to kind of just get started and I'll explain things in a little bit, I just want to really make sure we go through this entire exercise. So I'm going to kick off Claude Code and then I'll start explaining things in the background. I'll open another session in Terminal and we'll kind of give you an idea. So the first thing we're going to do is start off Claude. And these are the commands that we're going to use. Claude, dangerously skip permissions. This is one of those do as I say, don't do as I do. Essentially, that means if you ever worked with ChatGPT or any of these tools, especially Claude Code or any coding agents, it's like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? And we're working in basically a sandbox today, so I'm giving it free range, and therefore it can run in the background for us. And then you'll see something called teammate mode in process. And this allows us to run sub agents in the background so that essentially it manages context, which we'll get into a little bit. So go ahead and kick off Claude Code. And I've already got a command that we're going to run today. And we're going to paste it. Of course, it did automatically paste it and we can't see it. So I'm going to just go ahead and return, and then I'll open up a new window and then you can see exactly what that pasted. So today we are going to build a Splunk app that is a input, which similar to what Tasia already described. We want to divide it by 10 with a maximum of 10 miles between each location. I want to leverage free resources on the internet, and I understand I may have to convert zip codes to latitude and longitude for these services. The purpose of this is to track the weather for logistics companies for transportation management systems auditing. We have already built out the specs in the specs folder, review this, create a plan, and then we will start building. This is a demo. We have an .env file with our configurations of the Splunk URL and the Splunk token if we need to test things out. And then also, if you want to reference the Splunk docs or the docs for this, and then prior sessions, please investigate in detail so we can start moving forward. So I just wanted to get this kick started, and then we can start going into what exactly is going on in the background. So I'm going to open up a new terminal. We can see that over there. I'm going to squeeze this out of the way, and I'm going to open up Claude again. And what I want to first talk about, okay, let's try this again. I need to log into Splunk. And then I can start Claude. All right, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies. The demo people are with us. So I want to take a step back and talk about what a harness is. And a harness is essentially a way to manage AI. And AI functions as a kind of like a general entity. If you've ever logged into, let's say, ChatGPT or Claude, you say, you are a CPA and you're going to guide me on my taxes. And what you do is you essentially prompt the AI to establish its purpose. That's kind of like a harness. In this particular case, we are using Claude Code as the harness for Anthropic's models, which are Opus and Haiku, and I think there's one other one. So just think of that as a harness. Now, we are leveraging Claude Code with the subscription, so we're not using API keys. You can also leverage the API keys and generate your own harness for the codes that you're wanting to do, or for the coding mechanism. So this is just one that they've pre-built out for us. So just want to kind of give you a general like kind of overview of what exactly is Claude Code. And Claude Code is a CLI mechanism to interact with your coding environments. So the first thing I want to talk about is model. And if you do a slash command, you can pull up all of your, let's say, shortcuts. We're going to open up model, and we are defaulted to the Opus 4.6. It is the most advanced and capable. There's also Sonnet, and there is Haiku, which is very fast. But we're going to leverage the default Opus 4.6. And if you look on the bottom, you have this little command, or you can press left or right to say high effort versus low effort. For coding, I have found that while high effort takes longer, the effectiveness and the quality of the code is much better. So keep that in mind as you're doing this. I'm going to go ahead and escape out and double check Claude to make sure. Yes,
Great.
Deja?
Quick thing. I think can you increase the font size? I have like a couple of requests come in the chat.
Yes. Ooh, yeah, I can do that. And let me see if I can just open up. Oh, come on. All right. So it's already started to ask us some questions. So we're going back to the questions. So Claude will oftentimes ask us some questions that we need to answer. We've got just a few questions. The specs are thorough. My biggest question is how the sources of zip and code with lat long would you prefer? Download and process Celsius data, download the Celsius Bureau, and requires CSV format free authoritative. And what we're going to do is we're just going to download. And then for implementation process, since the specs are complete and well-defined, do you want me to build out everything sequentially from the bottom up of your data layer first, and then logic, then UI? Let's just go with the bottom up data logic, and we're going to submit. Again, I'm just trying to kick off the code so it starts functioning, and then we're going to explain everything in the process of what exactly is going on. I also just realized that I forgot to run the initialize, but we'll worry about that later. So moving back to our other window, we talked about model, and then we want to talk about plugins. Plugins are in a way to extend your tools, similar to what I was saying, a harness. A harness then can take advantage of plugins, and these can be made up of scripts. It can be made up of MCPs, model context protocols, to integrate with things. Let's say, for example, there's Playwright. If you're not familiar with Playwright, we'll talk about it in a second. But it allows you to take full advantage. And these are discovered through the Claude plugins official marketplace, but there is also other plugins available outside of here. But then again, you always have to worry about that security aspect of things. But we'll go through the ones that I have set up already. So you have things like code review, code simplifier, commit commands, front end dev, feature dev, GitHub, and Playwright, which we'll talk again in a second. And then the one that I like the most is superpowers. Essentially, it kind of organizes a lot of different commands into a single structure. So it'll first say, okay, I now understand what you're doing. Let me do a brainstorming exercise. Let me ask you some questions, and then we will create a plan, and then we'll create an implementation plan, and then we'll dispatch the sub agents to those environments. So let's just go over here and look at Claude. Looks like it's already starting to run. You can see that superpowers writing plans. Design doc is written. It's going through the exercise. And just so you highlight, this is the app we're building, and we've already CD'd into it, and we've opened up the Splunk app. You can see here that it's the general Splunk web application by the sample app. So we're just leveraging the sample app. If you're familiar with Splunk, it's already brought up. All right, so we've talked about plugins, and skills and plugins are a lot of the same thing. Skills that's where you start getting into the scripts and ability to do other things. So if I type in skills and available skills. So these are additional skills that you can use as far as testing development, writing plans, and you can see that the superpowers are leveraging these skills in this particular case. And that's one of the values. It's essentially a package of skills, and the plugin itself, when I click slash, which I can show that now. If I do / using superpowers, it now essentially just creates a list of my skills that it can use. And once it identifies as it's going through the code, it says, hey, I remember when I did that command superpowers. Here's the list of the skills that would be very applicable to what I'm trying to do. There's also agents that you can create. We won't go into those details because there's, when I say agent, you can make your own custom agent that specifies like certain things. So let me see if I can find an example of that real quick. And I'll bring that over here. And these are templates right here. It's called AI Temple. You can come in here and let's say you want to do research, market research. And I press enter, market researcher, marketing ideas. It's just a really cool way of integrating with multiple different agents. And these can be called as well. So you can see that there's skills, there's MCPs, commands, agents, and they all have a different purpose. But I just wanted to highlight those that they're all, that's one place that I would look at as you're kind of getting started. You go through an exercise as you learn these things.
Great question.
Yep.
So do I need to install the skills here in the Claude, or the using superpowers will take care of it for me? So I don't need to specify what skill I need.
Right. So the superpower in itself is already a pre-installed. It's on the marketplace, so I can install the superpowers, which then installs the skills for me. Right now, I really don't mess with that AI Temple that much anymore, just because I have everything I need built into Claude. But there are things that I will be thinking on in the future, which are called hooks, which are essentially my own custom mechanisms, of which we'll get into later, that allows you to create commands in sequential order or run a command prior to running a command. Or it's a very interesting way of saying, hey, I want to do a git commit. And if I do a git commit, it knows to say, hey, before you do that, make sure you create a new branch. And after we do a git commit, you can have another hook that says, all right, now create a push and then a pull request, and it's like a subset of creating these things within your environment. So I don't know if you answer your question, but that is one way I generally approach it. Is I just leverage the built-in plugins for now. As you get more advanced into the tool, you can kind of look at those.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg.
Mm-hmm. So now that we've got this, let's go over here and check exactly. Okay, so it's built out my plan, docs, plans, and we can see that over here. If I go to plans, I can see the weather design plan, and we'll minimize this so we can get a better, I might even just do this for now. We have a purpose, design, it's built everything else, referenced all the things, the full specification, architecture, the weather implementation plan, and all the back end requirements for this particular application that we defined. And we could have just done it from that initial prompt, but we would have gone through like a lot more questions, and I wanted to spend more of the time on the project in itself. So before I start explaining the project and much further, we are just going to go down here and say, yes, this looks great. And what we're going to do is the sub-agent driven. So we're going to just say sub-agent driven. And I like this pathway. It's a lot easier, especially for a beginner. And which we'll talk about context in just a second. So I've got this little bar down here that's built in with Claude that says my context window. And as you see, the context window is 32%. Now, we'll talk about in a second what that means, but I want to get this kicked off real quick. All right, so it's going in the sub-agent. It's now saying, okay, we'll pull the skill because remember, we're using superpowers, and it says, okay, this is great. We're going to use a sub-agent development plan. Let's execute this plan. Let's look at all the things that we need to do, and we can prioritize which task we have. If we can run task in parallel, we'll run task in parallel. If they're if they need to be run in a row sequentially, or it can run 2 parallel agents and then have one that runs sequentially, then followed by 3 or 4 parallel agents. So it really picks up the speed at which you're developing. It looks like in this particular case, we're going to run in sequential since we haven't built anything out at this point. All we have is the base application. So now, I did forget to run the init command, but we'll worry about that and I'll explain it a little bit. So we have the basic app structure. There's nothing else in this system other than our local, our metadata, and our exports. The only thing that I had and brought in here was the docs and this exports folder. The plans was empty and the specifications. Now, let's talk about specifications and what that means. Your specifications are the most important thing outside of context management. Your specifications define what project you want to build. Your specifications are informing your Claude instance or Claude agent to know what has and hasn't been built. And this is very key because you can always go back and reference those specifications to say, hey, where did we leave off of this? I want to expand upon this feature. Please review index.0 00-index, which is a reference to all my sub specifications on different parts of the components of the project. So the purpose of that is I only want Claude to look at files that it needs to look at. And this is very, very critical because you've got to think that Claude has like a short-term memory. It has about 200,000 tokens, which means it's spinning and thinking during this process. And the spinning and thinking consumes tokens. And this consumption of tokens, as soon as it hits the 100%, it wants to do this thing called auto compact. Now, let's talk about auto compact. When I hit that auto compact, it then takes all the session that happened previously and tries to shrink it down into, let's say, a concise document that is terrible. Don't do it. Don't let auto compact happen. What we're going to do is look at other ways that we can manage that context, because that is the most important thing that we need to do. So you can see that right now we haven't done anything. So we're in this other system, and I'm going to say use superpowers. Oh no, not oh no, but use superpowers. Please investigate the docs specs to see what we are building out. The only reason why I'm doing this is because I want to create a context usage. So you can see that context went up to 16%. It's already starting to do that. It's building out things, and we really haven't done anything else yet. We've already used 21% of our context. Now, let's go back and talk about context again. So you have everything. Okay, so this is when I didn't use the flag, which is dangerously skip permission. So we'll kind of see that that's what we're skipping over. Now, let's go back to the context question or statement. You see, as it's running, it's searching things, it's finding out information. But the only important thing in generality is after we create a plan is the conversation that it had. So right now, what needs to be built, it's going through all these things. What do you want to build? And it's used up 23% of the context. So if I type in context, we're going to take a look in the background. We're going to look at the brain behind the system and the plugins, the skills, the things that are consuming context. And we haven't even used some of these MCPs. And we may never even use these MCPs, and it's already consuming our context. And this is one of the things about MCPs. You may not necessarily even want to use them at all, because you can use a skill that calls an MCP, so it only uses the MCP when it knows it needs to. But I did install the Playwright MCP because it does bring a lot of value. So this is our context window. We're using the Claude Opus 6. We have 47,000 tokens that we've used of our 20K tokens. Now, when you think about hallucinations and you think about let's just say inability to understand what you're trying to say. So if you've used ChatGPT and you're doing a long conversation, eventually it kind of forgets the first things you said because it's kind of managing that context window as best it can. So what you want to do is always stay within this 200K token limit. And ideally, what you want to do is stay around the 100K because even then, as it gets more information, it kind of forgets what it's doing. So when it gets to for me, about 67%, 70%, I kind of go like, okay, now what are we going to do about this? How are we going to manage this context in a very effective way? Tej, I saw you drop up or turn on your cameras. Do you have a question?
No,
Okay,
Gray. I
perfect.
was just looking at and
Yeah.
observing. And is there any way we can increase one more font size here on this machine, or it's max on the
No,
font
I
size?
think we can, but it just kind of makes it difficult to manage. But we'll make it work. So
Oh
we
yeah.
can see, yeah, we'll see how we're looking at this environment. We're gonna now run a command called export. What is export? So all this information that has occurred here, and more specifically, we see the current state, the specs, the components. We see the detailed information of where things are. It says, hey, what we need to build. And when I run export, I can now tell it to say, I want to create a file called export and say, and we wouldn't need to do this at 23%. This is something I would do at like 60 or 70%. I would say, export this transcript is a good way of thinking about it to a file. And we're going to call this transcript one, because you're going to understand I want to label these because I can do cascading transcripts, but you only want to bring in the ones that are important to you. But you're going to do cascading transcripts.txt, and you'll see over here on the left hand side that it's going to create a file for me. Perfect. There's transcript one. Let's just double check before this is all. Yep, still building over here, 44% used. But going back over here, we see export transcript, and if I open that up, we can see exactly the dialogue and the communication that happened. So, what you can think about is now I have created a list of things that have occurred, but I've negated any of that thinking that Claude had to do in the background. So we've now told it all of these important things. Component. This is where my my Python file is. Here's my conf, my pop props and transforms. Here's all that detailed information that may be valuable to me, that I no longer have to hold on to that thinking because the thinking has already been done. Now I've got a transcript. So now when I open up that CLI again, I'm going to run a command called clear. And essentially, it clears my communication. I don't have anything there anymore. Everything is great. Everybody is happy. And we're starting essentially from a fresh Claude instance. But I now want to pull in that using superpowers. So then I will pull in using superpowers again because we're restarted. And then I'm going to say at transcript, there's my transcript, and say, I want to do another evaluation. We have done some coding changes in another session. So now it's going to load that transcript. It's going to load superpowers, and it's going to start thinking. And now we've seen our transcript. It's going to read it. It's going to be like, oh, what did we do in the last session? Great. That's great information. So this is a way, as you're going through Claude and you're creating conversations and you're building things out, you build out these transcripts and grow your knowledge without losing too much context. Now, remember, if you don't send anything to a plan or you don't create any kind of like markdown file for instructions, it's kind of useless because it hasn't done anything to take that thinking and put it into something. So that is assumed that we have done some level of thinking. So we're going to just say yes and don't ask again. But let's go back over here to see exactly what is going on. And it's actually going to restart Splunk. We are leveraging our token. Don't look at the token. Don't hack my system. But it's using that API, or yeah, the API token that I put in the .env file so that it can have access to that Splunk instance and do changes. So we're going to say yes and don't ask again. And so it's actually going to test that command, that Python script. And we're just going to say yes. We're going to do it once. Run again. And you know what? Just do it. We'll allow you. And as we go back into the project, we'll see exactly what's happening over here. It's working perfectly. It's actually testing it in the background. There's our token again. It's entered into two zip codes, and we'll start and we'll go over there and see exactly what it's been doing. But it's essentially testing out its own coding right now, and it's leveraging that Playwright plugin. Which, let's talk about what Playwright is. So there's two features of Playwright. There is the Playwright mechanism where it says, I'm going to test all my API backend. I'm going to run commands against my backend. I'm going to go test, the backend structure. Now, if you are leveraging, you actually see that it errored out and it's trying to install Chrome, but this is a headless machine, so we don't have the ability to do this. But if you're working from something, let's say like a Mac or a Windows or a Linux system in which it has a UI mechanism, you of course would have to be SSH stores, not SSH, but like remote desktop into it, so that for when it runs that Playwright, it can actually open up a browser for you, and you can tell it to say, go through and click all the buttons to test that everything is working as expected. It's actually trying to restart Splunk, and it has an issue with doing that. So let's see what it does. Okay, so we cause a problem because it's trying to take a command, and I'm supposed to be entering in a command. This is the only time that I've actually run into this too much, so we're just gonna try to escape out of this as much as possible and say, don't. Somebody logged in my. All right, let's just make sure. Okay, let's try this again. All right, my Claude has frozen up. The system we're running on has minimal resources. So let's just see if we can do this real quick. All right. I am going to open up another terminal, and we're Splunk. And we're going to do Claude dangerously skip. Or actually, what I'm going to do is just copy this over. And we're going to run a new command here called resume. And this is a great example of it. And we're going to do -- resume and press enter. So now it's going to look at my previous sessions. It's going to load our conversations. Today we're going to build. All right, yeah, this one right here. Today we're going to build a Splunk app. Perfect. So it looks like we had an issue here. So I'm going to just go ahead and close this right here. I don't want to, though. I guess we'll just leave it open and see if we can make it work in a second. So let me verify the dashboard. So do not try to restart yourself. Let me do that. And now what we're going to do is say, I now will. Okay, so we're going to just leave that there for a second. And we're going to go over here and see exactly what is built. Let's go ahead and refresh. We are now in the app in itself. Let's see what we have. Oh, I have to restart. server controls, and we'll restart Splunk because that's what it was trying to do a second ago, and it hasn't loaded those systems. Your application running CL forwarding ports. No, we're just going to close that. Do not try to restart yourself. Let me do that. So, where are we in the development? And tell me if there are areas in the specs that we have not completed. Go through the specs and update areas that have been completed with we'll just say done in progress to do. We're just going to say that. So right now I'm telling it to go through the specifications inside of my specs and go and mark what has been completed and what has not done. So we have restarted, and we are now logging in, and we're going to reset this, refresh it. And now we have the route weather tracker. So let's see what it looks like. We actually ran this a couple of days ago and went through the same exercise, and it actually looks just about the exact same, which is awesome. So I have a couple of zip codes you can see up there in the top right. We're going to say 3289. I believe that's Orlando, and we're going to go to New York, and we're going to click submit. So no whammies, no whammies. Let's see if it ran. Running all the APIs in the back end. Perfect. Route risk warning, total distance. Here's the temperature along the way, wind speeds along the route that is currently happening because it's using all of those details right now. Let me zoom in because I'm sure that that's something somebody's going to ask here in just a second. And it's using Dashboard Studio. And we can see the waypoints along the destination with their lat and longitude, the temperature, the weather, clear skies. And what we could say is okay, this is great information, and make it a way to log the details. So I'll pause there while the other command is running in the background, and then we'll go into that context management real quick. So it's going through and marking out everything's status for our architecture. I'm just reading right now. Perfect. And there we go. We have built a functioning app in about 40 minutes. Less than 40 minutes, about 30 minutes. And this is one of the things. So when Teja was saying it can reduce coding time, it really depends on how big of a project you're going to be building. If you are building I say a simple app like this, it's reducing the time, I would say by 95%. Like I would even go upwards of saying like higher than that. We just built this full application in which you could have somebody that's in a Splunk developer that builds add-ons all the time, and they wouldn't be able to build it this quick. I'm quite impressed how quickly we've done that. And again, we had already done the specifications prior to, and that's another thing. When you're messing with Claude, or you building an application or doing any type of activity, you should be spending you should be spending 70%, 75% of your time planning. Right now we already had planned before that, but you shouldn't be spending much more than 20% of the time actually having the system code. You can sit there, and so what I've done in the past is saying, okay, let's see what's done over here. Claude, why is it giving me some headache? And I'm just going to maximize this. Okay. It was doing some issues. So, all right, all specs updated. Here's the summary. When things left to restart. Perfect. So what we're going to say now, we're going to export this. And what I noticed is, you know what I want is I kind of would like to see and visualize a map. And so we're going to say transcript. Okay. Build out 1.txt. And we're going to say using superpowers, read build out. And I want to expand the scope of the project. What I will say then is something along the lines of we have restarted Splunk and everything works. Remember, we can reference. Oh, I just realized I haven't cleared, but I'll do that in a second. We can reference 007 index. And I'm actually going to copy this and escape. And we're going to say clear. And now it's cleared out my context window. I now have pasted in that previous system that we were doing. And now I want to include a map of the journey along the route. And we'll see what it does there. And while that's running, it's going to read the background, it's going to read the docs and says, okay, now I'm going to invoke brainstorming. I have now updated, I've pulled out the build out and all the information that we did before, so it knows what we've done. It knows to reference this index, so it knows all of the specifications that exist in my system. We have our plans, we have our exports, and that's one of the things that I start organizing my exports. And then I will also add a new folder that I call archive. And so now, as I'm done with things, this is a way to kind of keep things and say, I just move them up into the archive folder. So it's now doing another analysis. It's looking at the project. But while it's doing that, I want to show you, oh, we don't really care about this anymore. This was just an exercise. And we're going to just clear this. This was nothing that important. We were just asking to research. I wanted to show you how to turn off settings and config. So this is where the auto compact, which I have, auto compact is true. I want to turn that off. And if you want to change some of your models, auto install IDE extension, remote, and I'm going to press enter. Oh, and oh yeah, that's another thing you might want to see. So let's talk about how Claude manages its usage if you have, let's say, a Claude subscription and not using the API. So it has a couple of ways of doing it. It has a current session that is about a 5-minute rolling window that you have so much context that you can use within that window. And then you have a week-long context that you can use across the whole week, which resets. So the current session resets every 5 hours, and your current week resets every week. If you run out of context for one or the other, you're done. If it's the week long, you're done for the week. If it's just the current session, you just have to wait at rollover at the 5-hour mark and then start things back up. But my point was showing you how to turn off the auto compact here. All right, so that's what I wanted to show you there. We can show you hooks. Actually, let's come back over here and make sure there isn't any questions. Okay, it's reading things, it's exploring, it's using sub agents to look at the project so that it can maintain that context window, because that's the value of having agents do things. You can give that agent, that sub agent, an instruction, and that sub agent follows that instruction and then just reports back the information that let's just say my agent that I'm interacting with to use. So it's using some other external context window that is limited to 2000K as well, while not using my context window that I'm building things out. It doesn't hit this 33%, which is extremely valuable. Where should the map appear in the dashboard? Current layout or two charts in the middle? You know what? We'll just have a new tab because that sounds fun. And we're going to come over here and we're going to look at hooks real quick. And so this is just a kind of an interesting thing. So before a tool use, do an execution. So this could be like, hey, after tool use, I could say do a clear. Users prompt submit. What do you want when the user submits a prompt? Notifications are sent. And just a lot of different ways to leverage this mechanism. All right. Ooh, that would be nice. Free compact, so it export the file. Okay, sorry, I'm just thinking out loud of ways that I can use this tool. So, Tasia, I don't know if there's any questions in the chat. We're just kind of having fun at this point, and we can go back and forth, and I'm just going to kind of follow along there.
Yeah, I think the chat is no questions at this point, Gray, but I have one question. So I know sometimes when we are doing other things, right, by playing like using the Claude to code this Splunk app, I might be doing something else. Maybe I'm trying to work on a document, right? Or maybe I'm trying to respond to my colleague and then I'm chatting with the colleague on Slack, for example. And then I want to see if I don't want to run the dangerously skip command permissions, but I want the Claude agent or the terminal to give me notifications that it's waiting for my response, right? Whether what path do I need to choose? Whether, for example, you said a new dashboard or the existing dashboard. You said, hey, let's do new, right? So for that, if I'm not seeing the screen, I'm doing something else. How can I make Claude send me a
Send them a notification? Actually, I don't know that because since it's a CLI, it doesn't necessarily have exposure to, since I'm even in another system, it may notify on the local machine. I just constantly kind of keep up. I mean, I have like 3 screens, so I might have Claude on one of the other screens while I'm doing things, and I just periodically check it. So if you're using the Claude desktop app, there is a notification through that system, but your management of the context window isn't as effective, and so I typically don't use it. It's better to use the CLI as it's more powerful. And you know what? I'm going to just say yes, proceed. Our context window is 34%. If I was at the 60% after, well, it's just designing the doc and transitioning to the implementation plan. If I'm getting near the end and I've already made my docs, I would have done the export clear. Sorry, go ahead, Tasia. Was there another question?
Yeah, I was just thinking you're showing up hooks, right? Can I use that to send notification? I saw some notifications there when we were like trying to show us. So that's where I thought maybe can I use this hooks to?
Yes, and that's where you can probably do like a Slack notification hook. So when it has a, hey, I have a question, you probably can set it up where it'll do a hook when it has a question that has a script that does an integration with Slack. So therefore you get a notification in your app. So yeah, that would be one way of doing it. So again, that's the thing of where we are in our this Claude code. It's not dependent now on whether or not let me think about how to phrase this. We are living and transitioning to a time of it is your imagination of what is possible. So to answer your question, Tasia, yeah, there's a way. It's just not built in. It's just something that you have to think about. Let's do sub-agent driven. And so it's just something that you have to think about as it's just your imagination. That's all. Everything is possible with your imagination in this environment. So that's quite crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, developers. So your niche skills are the key things that you have.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig.
So again, building subagents. And this would be a case where after I finish, I make a command that says update my specification files. Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to write that one here shortly. Say, hey, write a skill that, or a hook that updates my specification files after I've finished an implementation plan. Okay. Things to think about. I haven't spent too much time on the hooks. I just am very much aware of what they do.
Mhm.
And I've been told by many, many people that I need to mess with them. But I just haven't done that just yet. All right. So we talked about context. We talked about auto compact and turning that off. We've talked about plugin skills and a little bit about MCPs and how you want to attach a MCP to a skill and not just called MCP, because when we look at that context window, just when we first start out, so let's just clear this and I click context. Before I have even started this MCP and all these different systems and the superpowers, we're already loading in these MCPs, and we've used the system prompts. So basically internal system prompts, system tools. These are things that you can't control. They're just built into kind of like that harness mechanism. We've used 2.8% for our MCP. Our custom agents have used some in our skills, and that's one of the values. We have a bunch of skills, but it doesn't use that much of the tokens, messages, compact buffer. So just a way to kind of think about why that's valuable, because it's a way to continually instruct the solution on how to do things. I didn't expect we would have 10 minutes at this point.
Yeah.
As quickly, I know, Tasia, you and I have gone through some exercises. Perfect. So feature code reviewer. Oh, I realized one thing that we didn't do is we haven't done the init. So when you run an init, it creates a Claude MD file. And a Claude MD file, so when you open up Claude, it reads that initially, so it gets an idea of what the project is, as well as establishing things inside of this Claude folder. This is the internal mechanism. So if I go to settings.local.json, we can we can see what we've allowed it. So when every single time that I said allow these abilities, it now has that and saved it as our ability to kind of use those. But again, and then there's also things like skills that you can add in here, agents specifically. So there's a .claude, and then there's an agents folder if you leverage the agents. Reload, Splunk, and validate. Oh, please don't try to do this again. It tried to do it again. All right. So what are we going to do? How do we try to do this? All right. I wonder if I just type this in. Whoop. All right. We are going to just open up another one before my password gets leaked. Okay, Splunk. And then we are going to say Claude. And we're going to open up that resume session. Okay. Continue, but don't try and restart Splunk. Let me do that. Please validate that all sessions were completed effectively.
Okay. So Gray, while that is doing the restart and then finalizing it, right? Since we have like 5 more minutes. So if I am new to Cloud Code and I don't know anything about it, but I want to try it out. This is very interesting, and this session will help me to go at least try it out, right? If I want to do that, so where do I start? And is it need too much of technical capabilities, or anybody with who's like a non-developer also can do that and then test it out?
That's a really good question. I would say if you're comfortable navigating around the CLI, you're familiar with like seek copy and chmod and chown, and understanding about how, let's say, basic CLI works, I think you're going to be in a position to do that. There's also things that as you're looking into these, like there's commands like, get out of here, that we think about these commands. So like security review, you'll want to do things like security review where it'll kind of look at your solution and try to see and diagnose any issues. This is where the MCP, you leverage the AI, the tie into them. So there's tools from a security standpoint that I leverage, but I would look at how would you get started. And you kind of need, I would describe like an ability to be someone that they would identify them as maybe a scripter, maybe not a full developer. If you're like, hey, I've written a couple Python files, I understand how this works, I understand libraries, I understand the terminology, SQL databases versus, let's say, a NoSQL database versus Splunk, and all those things. So but really, to get started, you can go to Claude Code docs and overviews. You'll need to um, sign up for Claude and create yourself a Claude account and create a plan, and then more or less install Claude on your system. You might have to do some paths and things like that, but once you get it up and running, yeah, everything is done in Claude. So let's say, for example, when I was here, and say I restarted Splunk, let's see if it worked. And did it give me a new tab? It didn't. So, oh, there it is. Route map. Perfect. Oh, look at that. It gave me a route map. It didn't do it along the highway, but you get the concept of what it's trying to do for when it dropped it and did it. So, so a lot of the things, let's say, for example, I'm going to do an export and say, this is, we'll call it build out, and we're getting close. .txt, and then I'm going to say move build out to.txt to docs/exports. So I know that seems lazy, but that kind of gives you an idea of the level of just giving it instructions. You can also say, I want to, and we'll just go up here and do it. I want to change my global.claude permissions to always allow dangerously skip. I'm not actually going to run this, but you could run this. It'll pull it up and do everything that you need it to do within a single command all around your directory. And if you do it without dangerously skip permissions, you can just click it through and allow it to do those things. So always make sure you're working in a sandbox if you're kind of going down this rabbit hole, but it does accelerate the speed at which you're developing. So I know we're close on time and we probably need to do a little bit of a closeout session. So I will pause there, make sure that there's no other questions that need to be answered.
No, I think I didn't see any questions come in here.
All right. Oh, there is a questions tab too.
Oh, so there's one. Okay, one question. One from Tushar.
Yes, so the recording will be recorded. We'll have a team that will be managing that and being, sending it out. All right. Well,
Yeah.
It's always great to end a webinar without much else needing to do. One query, it looks like.
Yeah, one query, and then maybe, I don't know, they're still typing out. So the same.
So, yeah. So I would look into, there's a solution called Cowork. And if you're just wanting to build kind of an Cowork where it's leveraging Claude Desktop, which I would say it's download, where you get the chat and then you get Claude Code, and kind of in the middle is called Cowork. So it can kind of guide you along the way in more of a simplistic fashion if you're non-technical in this sense. And then there's also ways where if you are really wanting to build something out, I would leverage Cowork and say, hey, I want to build a specification. Take the knowledge out of my brain and I can put it in a specification. Then when you go and you can say, hey, I know somebody that does and knows Claude Code very well, then you have an exercise with them looking at the specification with Claude Code and have them set it up and build it out. So if you want an application built, find a colleague or somebody that knows Claude Code, but come with them with a specification. Now you're really moving into a situation which you're going to be accelerated to success, because you're not necessarily asking them and explaining to them what you want them to do. You've already done the explaining of what you want to do into a document in which they can leverage the document. And when they get to a point where there may be additional questions, you just tell Claude Code to say, hey, export these questions and I'll send them to the original designer, and they will pass those off to you, and then you can pass those questions and answers back into Claude Code. So
there was one more. I'll take two more questions, and then I think we can end this session. Okay. So one thing is, do I need to learn any scripting language? No, you don't need to learn any scripting language. This Claude Code will do it for you, and you just need to know, run like the testers and point it in the right direction, so it is building out what you need. So you'll be like spending more time in the planning, and then Claude Code will take care of building the whole application for you.
Yes, and I think it's more about the foundational understanding of coding. If you're going to spend time learning anything, understand foundational blocks of code. That's going to get you further than trying to learn a specific language, because Claude Code, in just the past 6 months, it's gone from never or making occasional mistakes in which you have to instruct it to being able to build things out without errors. Well, it might build things out without errors, but you need to be able to know how to prompt it to change the direction of the product you want, while also simultaneously updating the specs to make sure that it can remember what you desired. And again, that's why the specs are so important. It's your foundation of everything. And it's very hard to have your project and your specs drift apart, because getting them back together, which I'm going through right now in a painful exercise, is not fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Graham. One more thing. I think, Gaurav, you had a question about how are we going to take up the examples of Grade 8 props and App Inspect, right? So you can even ask it to go through the App Inspect. It'll go download the tool and it will do the App Inspect for you. I have tested it, and then it'll put everything into the default folder and follow the golden standard so that you can install it on any environment, or the cloud environment. I know the cloud environment has to pass that golden standards, so it will do that for you. You can even ask Claude to do it. So it will put everything according to the App Inspect. It will inspect. If there are any errors, it will go correct it by itself, and then it will run the App Inspect again, and until it shows you the pass result, right? So it will do it for you.
And there was one last question. I'm just going to answer it quickly. How do I prevent Claude Code from learning from our proprietary SPL or internal log schemas? There's a command, or there's not a command. That's either settings. I've seen it with Claude Code Desktop. And then there's also a way that if you get a specific, let's say, plan with Claude Code, or Anthropic, that it'll not share. And I think that's kind of the enterprise level. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's close it out. I don't want this to be longer than an hour and a little bit. So, Tasia, thank you for setting this up. I'm excited. This was fun. Please send your feedback and let us know if you want to see something like this again, go down a specific path. These are all the things. And the last thing I will say, you are going to go through heartache while you go through this process. That is necessary for you to learn, because the term that I like to think of is pain makes change. And if you're very familiar with Splunk, you know not to do index equals star because somebody's told you not to do index equals star. We all started off as newbies and we learn the painful way to do things right. And that's the same thing in the same way you should be approaching any of these tools. Pain equals growth. Work in sandboxes so you don't wreck your home computer, and then go from there. So thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you next time, and have a good day.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Do you want to take it off? Kickstart everything for us?
Sure, great. Thank you. Okay, so hello everyone.